Miami-Dade County, under the leadership of Mayor Daniela Levine Cava, is moving swiftly to expand COVID-19 vaccine distribution to protect our community and move our economy forward. Vaccine supplies are currently extremely limited, and as the state provides more vaccines to the county, we are working hard to distribute them as fast as possible. Register for vaccine updates and get more information at miamidade.gov/vaccine. Get vaccinated, Miami-Dade County. It's our best shot for a strong, healthy community.
And welcome in WDNA 88.9 FM to the Frost Hour. I am your host, Philip Capuzzi. It's my pleasure, as always, to be joining you. Unfortunately, this is the last program of the semester. It's been an incredible program. Had so many wonderful groups come into the Jazz Gallery here at the studios in Coral Way. Some unbelievable music. And here this morning, we have a really incredible group of up-and-coming musicians, all part of the Frost School of Music. This is an ensemble led by and featuring music all composed by Ben Thomas Taylor. He's on guitar here this morning, and he's joined by Eric Stern on piano, Patrick Leavy on electric and upright bass, Victor Valdes on drums, Zach Niess on trombone, Luca Stine on trumpet and flugelhorn, and rounding out the ensemble, Edgar Byars on tenor saxophone. So without further ado, let's get into the program. They're going to start off with a composition of Ben Thomas Taylor's entitled Justice here on WDNA 88.9 FM, the Frost Jazz Hour. Ben Thomas Taylor, live and direct here on WDNA 88.9 FM, the Frost Jazz Hour, performing music from his March 12th release, The Bohemian, featuring all compositions by himself. Today playing some of those compositions with mostly new personnel, some musicians from that original record, Patrick Leavy on bass and Zach Niess on trombone, also on this hit, and they're joined by Luca Stine on trumpet and flugelhorn, Edgar Byars on tenor saxophone, Eric Stern on piano, and Victor Valdes Jr. on drums, of course, with Ben Thomas Taylor on guitar and leading the group. And I just want to mention before we get into the next song that if you have it within your means to donate to the station and support live programs like this, support the programming in general here at WDNA, which we bring to you day in, day out basis here at the station. You can visit WDNA.org, donate securely. As always, it's tax deductible. And we have some new merch that came out recently that you can look into as well. So with that, we're going to step into the next song from this group. Hear this fine last Frost Jazz Hour of the year, the last live Frost Jazz Hour, that is. We have some wonderful reruns coming up in the next few weeks. But being that this is the last live program of the year, we're going to savor it. So we're going to move on with the next song entitled Anna, also composed by Ben Thomas Taylor, as are all the tunes on this performance. Ben Thomas Taylor, live and direct here on WDNA 88.9 FM, the Frost Jazz Hour. That last tune entitled Anna, composed by Ben himself, as are all the tunes on this performance. I'm your host, Philip Capuzzi, with you for the Frost Jazz Hour every Thursday morning from 11 a.m. until 12 noon. Like I've mentioned a few times throughout this program, this is the last live show of our program for this year, but coming up in terms of reruns, we have the Stamps Jazz Quintet next week. That was a wonderful performance from back in September of this year, a new crop of Stamps Quintet as the old one graduates. Then after that, the Frost Concert Jazz Band from back in 2016. That's going to be on December 23rd. And then closing out the year, another incredible performance from July of this year, Troy Roberts alongside Tim Jago. So with all that said, before we get into the next tune, Ben, I wanted to just ask you a few questions. And one question that I like to ask all of these student-led groups that come in is just to give some insight on kind of your background in the music, your origin story, if you will. How did you come to the music?
Yeah, well, I think that, for a lot of young guitar players, kind of starting out, started listening to like rock and blues and was really heavily influenced by that. Even had a little stint playing classical bass in middle school and high school as well. But I really started focusing on jazz when I started high school. And kind of when I got to Frost, I was kind of exploring some, ways that I could kind of combine some of my rock and pop and blues chops with jazz and sort of this fusion thing. And that's kind of what inspired me to sort of write some of this original music that you're hearing today. Right,
yeah, and with regards to composition, have you been writing for a long time, or is that something you came to later?
It was something that I kind of came towards later. I probably started writing for this particular instrumentation the summer of 2019. Actually, the first song that we played, Justice, which actually the single for it came out it was the year anniversary of that coming out just a few days ago.
Nice.
That was the first song that I wrote, and I probably wrote that in the summer of 2019, and then that sort of was the thing that sort of helped carry over into some of these other songs. The one that you just heard was one that has not been released on an album entitled Anna. I wrote that one probably in early 2020, maybe late 2019, but obviously a little bit of a very different style. But as you can kind of see from the first composition to some of my later compositions that haven't been released yet, you can see the change in them.
Right. And you mentioned writing for this specific instrumentation. Is this a sound that you had in your head before you started writing, or did it kind of start to materialize as you were writing? Oh, maybe I want more horns here, or was it really solid in your head right before?
It was pretty solid in my head, exactly what I wanted. I always wanted to write for horns because I just love the idea of being able to sort of spread them out and have them play a more integral role in just a band environment, Some of the stuff that I was trying to write, I really couldn't get across in a live format with just like a quartet without a horn section. So I kind of had the idea for the horns just initially, and they've kind of been carrying over. So,
right, yeah. And then as a composer, obviously bringing your music into an ensemble like that, where you have so many musicians, that are giving themselves to the music, it's always a balance of trying to allow your idea to speak through in the way that you're conceiving it, while still allowing those musicians to, speak for themselves and be their own voice. So I guess, what was that process like throughout the course of recording the album? Were there any difficult moments in terms of, getting out what you wanted, or did it all kind of flow pretty naturally?
Well, in terms of the album, it was a very interesting process because we recorded it in the peak of COVID. So
right.
We never actually had like a full band session. We basically recorded drums one weekend, horns took 2 weekends to record, keys, bass, all that stuff was recorded individually, and then I was able to produce it in Logic and sort of have more control over that. But I think that's on some of the newer tunes that we're going to be playing today was more of a collaborative effort. This band went out to Aspen, Colorado for the JAS Academy program earlier this summer, and that was really the first time we'd had an opportunity to actually play together because COVID kind of restricted us last year. So that was when we sort of started getting a little bit more collaborative in our efforts, and you'll hear a few instances. I'm sure everyone can kind of think back to them of things that were going to go another way, but then we kind of changed them up. And but it's been definitely a lot more collaborative once we've actually been able to start like playing together.
Of course. Yeah, no, thanks so much for sharing that. I want to talk a little bit later in the program, but for now I think we're just going to move on with the music. So what do you guys have next?
Yeah, so this next one is a newer tune that I wrote. It was not on the album, but we worked on it out in Aspen. It's called Brothers. I had the idea for this I think it was maybe my sophomore year, sitting in a guitar ensemble class. I was just really inspired by some of the other guitar players in that class, and I thought that it would be cool to maybe take this melody and maybe write it out for 4 guitars, but I kind of set it to the side. And then when Aspen came around, I decided to fully arrange it and kind of make it for like a full band sort of thing. So this is Brothers.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Ben Thomas Taylor in conversation, live and direct here on the Frost Jazz Hour, WDNA 88.9 FM, the last live program of the year. And on the other side of the break after this tune, you're going to hear from our wonderful producer and organizer extraordinaire, Alberto de la Guerra. But for the time being, we're going to move on with another composition of Ben Thomas Taylor, like he said, entitled Brothers, here on WDNA 88.9 FM. Brothers from Ben Thomas Taylor, live and direct here on WDNA 88.9 FM, the Frost Jazz Hour. I'm your host, Philip Capuzzi. We're going to step aside briefly for some important messages from the station, and when we return, we're going to have a message from our producer and organizer extraordinaire, Alberto de la Reguera, as we close out live programs for the year with this show. But for the time being, some messages from the station, and we'll be right back.
And yes, sir, this is the eighth session of the UN Frost Jazz Hour. You know, we started on 2014, and now we are under our eighth year. You know, and that doesn't count. When we used to spin the record, that was 15 years before that. And I'm very happy, you know, that we're still doing it. You know, we have so many problems, you know, especially the last 2 years. But thank you to everybody, and especially I want to mention some people. You know, first of all, our current host, Philip Capuzzi. Philip, thank you very much, man. You know, I mean, it's, you fill up and very, very well. And before him, Marcelo Corelli. Marcelo now is USC, and you know, wonderful drummer. And some people at the station, Maggie Pereira, station manager Howard Duperly, and Alex Ostrich and Brian Barrentus over in the technical department. Man, you guys are awesome. And on the money making department, Sarah Cruz, if I may say that, Sarah Cruz, Jen Torna, and our boss in chief, Mr. John Daversa. Thank you, John. You're awesome. And also my partner in this madness, if I can say that, is our photographer, maybe the best photographer in the South Florida, Mr. Philip Abello. Hey, Philip. Thank you very much for everything. And now this is our, as you say, this is our last program, and we're going to have 3 more shows. With Stamps Jazz Quintet, the Frost Concert Jazz Band. I recommend that on the December 23rd, just before Christmas, you know, with some Uruguayan artists playing South American music. And with him it's going to be Federico Britos. And after that, it's going to be Troy Roberts and Tim Diego. And after that, the even good thing began, you know, with Carlos Puig Quartet, Lucas Apostolaris, Joe Curreri, Angel Perez Quintet, Noah McCover Quintet, and Mr. Shelley Berg, none other than Mr. Shelley Berg, and a Tian Charles group. So thank you very much for listening all this time. Thank you very much, Ben, you know, for bringing up your people here. I know this is kind of, you know, your guys are in class and, you know, with a lot of things to do. So, in the name of Bully the cat, thank you very much for being here. And people who know me know what I'm talking about. Okay, take it over.
Burning at the Jazz Gallery, Ben Thomas Taylor, live and direct here on the Frost Jazz Hour, WDNA 88.9 FM. I'm your host, Philip Capuzzi. Thanks again to our producer, Alberto de la Reguera, for coming on and giving some thanks to the wonderful people who make everything tick here for the program and at WDNA in general, of course, himself included. And just to mention the musicians that you're listening to here this morning, we have, of course, Ben Thomas Taylor on guitar, leading the ensemble. Alongside him in the rhythm section, Eric Stine on piano, Patrick Leavy on upright and electric bass, Victor Valdes Jr. on drums, and in the horn section, Zach Niess on trombone, Luca Stine on trumpet and flugelhorn, and Edgar Byars rounding out the ensemble on tenor saxophone. We have some more music for you before we close out the program. I'll also be with you from 12 until 3, as always, for the Latin Jazz Quarter after this program, so be sure to stick with the station at that point. And before we move into the next program, I had a couple other questions I wanted to ask you. So obviously, in talking about this project, like you mentioned, the album had to be recorded remotely, because of the circumstances. But even so, my question is basically, how have you seen the project evolve since the time of release? Obviously now with mostly new personnel, breathing some new life into the songs. How have you seen everything kind of grow since that March release?
Everything has kind of grown, pretty significantly, and I kind of think that you just alluded to it in terms of like the personnel. I think that this being a musician yourself, it's really hard to get 7 people in a room to do anything at the same time. And so I've been really fortunate that these guys have been committed enough. I haven't asked too much out of them in terms of like gigs or rehearsals and stuff like that, but getting them to play and to buy in is really important. And it really is awesome to have so many amazing musicians that are just like willing to play this like random music that I just like wrote. And it's kind of cool just having them bring it to life, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And being that you've been composing so much, obviously writing this whole album and then continuing to write after that, do you think of yourself now more as a composer, or do you focus more on developing mastery of the instrument, or do you kind of think of both of them as one of the same? Because obviously you're a very technically proficient guitar player at the same time, but it seems like maybe the majority of your energy has been in composing recently, but I don't want to assume, so I'd rather hear your
It
side of
definitely has been, but I think that it's been more out of necessity just because, or necessity at the same time as just like kind of wanting to escape a little bit from it, I think that being someone who practiced a lot of guitar growing up and, someone who focused a lot on technique and focused a lot on improvisation, working on composing is something that's totally new for me. And I think that it's really cool because the more that I've done it, the more I've seen myself grow in it. And it's kind of nice, that I can listen to a recording of something that I've written and kind of see that it's got its own unique voice, and I think that's something that all of us as musicians are trying to find at some point, is their own unique voice, whether it is in composing, whether it is in improvisation. And so I'm really fortunate to at least have found something that's kind of close to maybe calling it, my own style or something like that,
Yeah, no, and I would definitely concur with that it kind of feels like something that's specifically yours, in listening to the record and obviously hearing you guys perform here this morning. So I guess, now that you're writing all this new music and everything, do you have any specific release plans or specific goals in general? Obviously, this being your last year at Frost and everything, at least in the undergrad program.
Yeah, we haven't really been able to set anything in stone, and I think it's partially just because everyone's so busy and
Of
stuff
course,
like that,
of course.
I've had ideas of doing stuff, but the one thing that we will be doing is we are, as of right now, set to have an ensemble, like a DIY ensemble through Frost.
Nice.
Which is going to give us an opportunity to rehearse at least once a week and maybe kind of take on some of these more ambitious projects. So we might end up having some sort of recording project that we end up doing next semester and then potentially release in the summer or fall of 2022.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks again, Ben, for being with us and speaking with us and sharing your music. So yeah, WDNA 88.9 FM, thank you so much as well to the listeners for listening to our programs, this, of course, being the last live program of the year. Also, thank you to all of our viewers, whether you be on livestream.com or youtube.com. If you guys are unaware, for the FIU Music Hour as well as the Frost Jazz Hour, we also produce a live stream that is available, like I said, on livestream.com or on youtube.com if you subscribe to WDNA Radio. Really wonderfully produced by our back-end team, like Alberto mentioned, Alex Autrich and Brian Barrientos. So as we move forward with the program, we have time for maybe one or two more songs, just to mention the musicians once more. Of course, this ensemble led by and featuring the compositions of Ben Thomas Taylor on guitar. He's joined by Eric Stine on piano, Patrick Leavy on electric and upright bass, Victor Valdes Jr. on drums, and the horn section, Zach Niess on trombone, Luca Stine on trumpet and flugelhorn, and Edgar Byars on tenor saxophone. So now we're going to move forward with the music. WDNA 88.9 FM, the Frost Jazz Hour. Ben Thomas Taylor, live and direct on WDNA 88.9 FM, the Frost Jazz Hour. Thanks so much to everyone for tuning in throughout the course of this program. Also to those of you guys who watched it on the live stream, livestream.com or YouTube, WDNA Radio. Feel free to subscribe to the channel to keep up with all of our live streams. Also have some wonderful programs coming up next year, hopefully, as we foray back into more live programming at the station. Just to share the musicians from this performance once more, of course, leading the group, Ben Thomas Taylor on guitar, also composed all of the tunes, Eric Stern on piano, Patrick Leavy on electric and upright bass, Victor Valdes Jr. on drums, and in the horn section, Zach Niess on trombone, Luca Stine on trumpet and flugelhorn, and Edgar Byars on tenor saxophone. And with that, I'm going to step aside. I'll be back with you guys live in the new year, hopefully for the Carlos Puig Quintet performance. But for now, I'll step aside.